Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers on the air since 2014 as Santa Barbara's most popular, most awarded, and only local news analysis and commentary show. We are joined today, very pleased to welcome back Nick Welsh, executive editor and national security correspondent for the Santa Barbara Independent, and Josh Molina, politics and policy writer for Newshawk and the Joe Rogan of Santa Barbara. So lots of news, fellas, on the tenant and housing front this week. Really huge evictions at a couple of buildings in IV. Josh, recap that real quick, and then let's talk about what that all means.
Don't blabber on and on. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Okay. So Core Spaces, Chicago-based developer, has purchased 3 apartment buildings in Isla Vista known as CBC and the Sweeps, and they serve them with eviction notices. So it's anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people who are going to be affected. Obviously, we don't know how many people actually live in these units, and so the reason is, oh, we need to renovate the building. And so this goes right into the heart of what the Santa Barbara Tenants Union has been talking about: bad landlords who are renovating their properties as a reason to kick out tenants and then increase the rents. Now, obviously, there's a lot of great landlords who don't do that, but this example in Isla Vista screams that situation, because they're not from here and they don't know the housing crisis that we are in. And so these people have to leave either within 60 days of the time they got the notice, which was a week ago, or by August. So the messaging is a little bit unclear from the eviction notices, but at the latest, August. And so where are you going to put 800 to 1,000 people? Where are they going to live? In anywhere in this town? And a lot of these people are Section 8 recipients. They've been there a long time. And I want to just hit one thing before I stop talking is Isla Vista is, to many people, a UCSB student community. It is a place where a lot of kids come every year and they party and they go to, really good school, and it's a turnover, and they just see it as, a party school and a party community. But Isla Vista has long been a home for longtime Latinos and Latinas, Latinx population, and that's been affordable housing for our community. So we've seen generations of people grow up in Isla Vista. I went to Isla Vista Elementary School. IB Elementary looks very different in terms of demographics today than it did when I went there because of the university's growth and involvement. But we're talking, it's bad enough with students, but we're not talking just students. We're talking families. We're talking kids. I interviewed a mother who's got a 4-year-old who goes to Isla Vista School, and they're going to be out on the street. So it's not just students. It's working class Latinos in this community who've been there for generations in these apartments.
Yeah,
No,
Nick, but it is. Go ahead, Nick.
No, you raise a really good point. It's not just students who come and go and you sort of expect them to sort of blow with the wind. No, these are people who've been here for a long time, and to try to find the housing to replace these people. I mean, I know that Laura Capps, second district supervisor, who recently inherited Isla Vista as part of her district, is out there beating the bushes, and she's got her staff people out there, and they're saying, you know what, to try to find that many units anywhere around here is an impossibility. And so it's not like there's any, and there's no quick fix here. It's not that there's a legislative magic wand that the county of Santa Barbara can, invoke and say, you can't do this. It is worth noting, here's this group, it's this company out of Chicago. It was 3 dude bros who went to school together at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, and they are kind of insufferably entitled. And when you look at their their website,
What did you call
they
them? Three what? Three what?
Dude Bros, and you know, one was a surf bum at bail, one was a bartender, and you know, they have all this sort of sloppy talk about how wonderful they are, but what they specialize in is shooting fish in barrels. They find rental
Well,
properties.
they've done this before.
They've done this before. They specialize in finding properties that, you know, they are in a educational market context, and where you have exceptionally non-existent vacancy rates, and you buy it and you allegedly improve it. And it is a growing niche market in the commercial real estate universe, or the residential universe. You know, educational housing. You know, a lot of parents can pay top dollars and will pay top dollars, and it will price people out. And this comes at a time when, you know, the county of Santa Barbara and every government here is scrambling to come up with a new housing element. And again, Josh was highlighting, you know, that, you know, this is in contrast to the sort of the mom and pop local landlords, who traditionally charge often significantly under the market rate. They work with tenants, and they don't do this. But what you have, these guys came in, and I think it was like on February 16th, they actually bought the place, and they you know, they wasted no time sending out this mass eviction. You have 3 properties. Why couldn't they stagger it, like one after the next? Why do you have to just place everybody all at the same time? They haven't submitted any application for any of the work they claim they're going to do.
So they're inventing the future of housing or something, right?
That's what they do.
Is their slogan. Josh, do we know like what the range of rents is now and what they might be charging later? Or, I mean, is it rent gouging per se that they're doing?
I talked to some tenants, and one of them told me that they were in a 1-bedroom and were paying something like 2,800. And so I did not ask rents for everyone I interviewed. I didn't ask the name of the dog either. You know, you're supposed to do that, you know, but they're hot, they're expensive, and there's multiple people. So if it says 2-4 people on the lease, you can guarantee that there's more people, especially students, sharing all of that.
But
I mean, this comes at a time when the university
yeah,
is being sued by, you know, the county of Santa Barbara and the city of Goleta for failing to provide housing. And the university's only solution has been this gargantuan monstrosity. It started off as 5,000 units, now it's down to 3,500. And you know, for whatever reason, they've had all these plans on the books. We could do this and we could do that. They've chosen not to pursue those. And you know, so there is an acute crisis out there at university. I mean, one of the reasons UCSB teaching assistants were amongst the most militant and hardcore in this recent strike, and by militant hardcore, I mean they were the ones who most resisted the negotiated deal that was ultimately agreed upon with the university, is because of the high housing prices of Isla Vista. And so it's a raw nerve, and this is just a massive explosion.
yeah. And I mean, just to be clear, I mean, this is all legal what they're doing. I mean, it's not right, but it's legal. These what are they, rent evictions that they're doing. And you know, it was interesting that this was the week that the city council changed their the city's just eviction a law to require that anybody who does this has to have their permits up front and show them to the tenants. And if, Nick, as you said, they don't have any permits. They haven't done any preliminary.
What I've heard is they haven't submitted any of those yet. They don't have any of those yet. I mean, it is interesting. You hear from the mom and pop landlords and some of the people representing the landlord industry think, you know, this rent eviction thing is being blown out of proportion for rhetorical political purposes. So the tenant union activists can claim victory over a non-existent problem. Well, the timing could not have been worse. While they're saying this problem is being exaggerated or you're solving a problem that doesn't exist, kablooey. I mean, again, it's really important. There are so many mom and pop landlords who are not charging like the market rates. But it would be really nice if the leaders of these organizations were to come out and say, you know what, we are appalled and horrified by what these guys are doing out there in Isla Vista. And we think there are other ways to skin the cat, and they do not have to inflict this level of economic violence on the community.
Josh, is there any recourse for the tenants here? Is one thing, and then the other is the change in the Santa Barbara city law came on a 7-0 vote in the council, although the mayor, Randy Rouse, seemed a little reluctant, saying, going to Nick's point, is this, an anecdotal problem or is it really something with data behind it?
Yeah, I think Laura Capps, Supervisor Capps, and her chief staff, Chris Henson, are looking at, is this legal? And I think mostly at this point, they're finding, here's how we can provide resources, financial resources during this time in this period. This whole issue of the building permits could become a thing, but there's nothing on the books right now. In Santa Barbara, they took this action to say, you can't evict somebody if you have not gotten your permits to actually do work, because the thinking is that they're evicting, doing something very minor, and then just charging more in rent. And there were people who testified at the Santa Barbara City Council meeting who said, our landlord said, you can come back after we do our work. We left for a month, and then when we called, they told us, oh, it's already been rented out. Sorry. So that is a real thing. Randy Rouse's point, and the mom and pop landlords who testified, the ones who say we just own a few units, or we inherited, or it's our retirement, they are saying that this is not a mass problem. And it's tough for them to say that because there's people testifying saying it happened to us. So Randy's point is, we know it's real, we know it happens, but we want to know if it's 3 times in a year or if it's 10, 15, 20, and how many people are affected. And he's the most moderate on that council, so he's looking for data. So he went with it, but he said, I'd really like to have some statistics. So the city, somehow there's got to be some tracking of these situations rather than the anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, I mean, in the city, I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. We don't have any like large, huge, multiple, 100+ unit buildings like that outside of the housing authority, or do we?
Well, I mean, there are spots on the east side, the west side. I'm thinking the most obvious one is there's one on Haley Street. It's about 8 units. It's they're like blue. Nick, I'm sure you rode your bike by there and seen them. They're sort of like blue 1-stories. They're townhouses, and that's being renovated. That's been in the process, and so that they're going to do a development there. So there's not like these mass things like Isla Vista, but if you have 20 people living in a unit, that's 3 times that amount.
Over on the lower west side and the lower east side, you have some very, I mean, maybe not 500, but you have large apartment complexes,
Right.
which we had Ivy come in, right, which is another sort of out of town, more of an investor operator, and they were very aggressive, and they displaced a lot of tenants making renovations. And that was before the term renovation had been coined.
Yeah. Well, and the data we do have, Josh, you reported there have been 20 transactions of apartment buildings at 141 million or something like that.
Yeah, well,
Pay up.
coincidentally, this Hayes Commercial Group, which obviously is coming at it from the commercial property perspective and residential property, they're talking about in their quarterly report how apartment buildings are great investments right now because you can flip them really quickly. You can sell them and you can make profit. And in terms of total dollars, last year was the most money that the sales of these apartment buildings have made on the South Coast. So all of these pieces are coming together to say that if you've got the money, now's the time to buy an apartment building and renovate it because you can make, I think Stanley Zenkoff said at the meeting, sort of like, gross or ridiculous profits. And that's what's happening,
Yeah, another piece of it, and proving there's nothing new under the sun. I think back when we started the show in 2014, we were going on about STRs and vacation rentals in the city and everything. And now the council, is still addressing the problem because whatever the fix was in 2015, I guess, didn't really fix the problem. Nick, what's
No, so the vacation rentals or STRs, which makes it sound like a venereal disease, it's a growing problem. That obviously, for people who want to come to Santa Barbara and visit, it is a great alternative to the high price hotels and motels that we have. We don't have a lot of cheap hotels or motels, and so it is clearly a super desirable from the visitor's point of view, and from people who can convert their parts of their homes to these. It's a great way to make a ton of money. And the problem is at some point you begin to really impinge upon the limited housing market. And they argue, well, the people who are going to open up their homes to a vacation rental visitor are not necessarily going to open up their homes to a long-term tenant. And I'm sure there's some element of truth to that, but the question is how much? And you're going to be losing some rental properties that people think, well, why should I rent to somebody at market rent for whatever, and when I could be making so much more just having people stop by for the weekend. It does have an effect on the neighborhoods. Not everybody is having wild bachelor and bachelorette parties as the stereotype. Many are get along just fine, but you feel it in the neighborhood and people don't want it. So the city council is considering a ordinance that would enable City Hall to criminally prosecute. City Hall has one prosecutor right now on staff. They want to hire another part-time prosecutor, and these guys would criminally prosecute illegal vacation rentals.
What the fine now is $100 or something like that? I mean,
well, right now the fine,
silly.
the first fine is $100, and I think it goes up to 500. And I think under what the program they're talking about now is they would start at 1,000, go to 5,000. But there is something, right now, before they had the criminal prosecutor, they would have to go to the district attorney who has a ton of stuff on their plate, say, please, baby, please, would you prosecute? DA has other fish to fry and it wasn't that interested. So clearly it's a big bone of contention, and there's this one was actually finance committee level, and it was a 3-0 vote. Each one of the members of the finance, well, do we want to start off on criminal? Maybe that's a little too rough. Or, they all had various things that they were going to quibble with, but it's going to the council as a whole, and I think the votes are there to get this passed.
Nobody's going to vote against tenant stuff now. Josh, former city attorney, excuse me, one, second.
Henry's okay?
Yeah, he's okay. But Josh, the discredited city attorney administration of the now forgotten Ariel Calan, did not the city lose a big case about this issue? I have some recollection of your close personal friend James Fechner being involved in this. How is that at play here?
I don't remember the exact details, but what's happening with the current vacation rental issue is that these are people who are operating vacation rentals outside of the hotel zone who are not paying the transit occupancy taxes. And I think with that other case, that was a situation where they were in the coastal zone and they were providing, they were paying. So it's a different situation. We don't know how many vacation rentals are happening in Santa
nobody's
Barbara.
making a secret about it. I mean, if you go to Airbnb or one of these things, I mean, it's all out there. I mean,
No, I mean, so the city basically, the proposal, and one of the reasons people are upset is it's up to $1.4 million for a 1-year program. And part of that money, 100,000 to 400,000, is to figure out how many there are. Right now, it looks like there's probably about 1,500. Most of those are not in the coastal zone. And all of those that are not in the coastal zone, which just imagine, the ocean side of the freeway being the coastal zone and everything on the mountain side of the freeway being essentially illegal. So there's about 800, say, in the non-coastal zone, the inland zone. They would just be outright illegal and they would just be shut down. There's, I think, somewhere like 90, and again, these numbers are pretty squishy, inside the coastal zone that are permitted, and they estimate there's another 90 in the coastal zone that aren't permitted and aren't paying taxes. Now, people in the industry will say, the permitting process to get legal in the coastal zone is either non-existent or is so onerous and impossible that of course you have people who aren't paying the bed taxes that Josh alluded to. Yeah. And if you had a system that made sense, the criminals, so-called, would be taken care of because they'd all be legal, and the city could collect. The big number, though, are on the inland side.
Yeah. But, I mean, I got to say, I mean, even so, say just for sake of argument, your 800 number is correct. I would be surprised if 10, let alone 20% of those people actually said, oh yeah, now I'm going to have a long-term rental to a stable tenant or any, I mean, I've never bought this is taking, a lot of housing stock off the rental market, because I don't think we'll do it.
I don't know if we've really given that a chance. And I know that, given the proliferation of indoor and outdoor granny flats or granny units, I think that these could easily sort of fall in that neighborhood. And certainly the city, I don't know what kind of encouragements there could be, but given the housing crisis, I think that's something City Hall really needs to push on and encourage.
All right.
And it's just a numbers game too, Jerry. Like if you can make $4,000 in a weekend, that's like more than, every weekend. That's more than you're going to make if you're charging a local family or something. So this is, I don't want to, it's not greed, because, people have the right to do what they want with their property.
Well, greed is good.
Stuff. But, if you don't care about homeless people and poor people living on the street, and you'd rather rent your vacation rental to some tourists who can pay $4,000 a weekend, well, that's, I guess, your choice.
Or city college students, or the EF students. There's tons of students that are, need housing, and you don't have to. It's a low impact relative to.
All right. So say we got all 800, and we got to hurry up because I got a bunch of other stuff I want to cover. But say we got all 800. Would that come, I mean, would that count toward the RENA number, John?
I mean, if they're able to create housing units, yes, but nothing they're doing right now will count for this current housing element for sure.
All right. All right, a couple of things real quick. One, great victory for the people at the Santa Barbara School Board. Nick, I know that you have done intensive research about the science of learning to read, but I mean, in shorthand, they had this kind of touchy-feely Lucy Calkins reading theory going for many years. And now they're going to change the curriculum, I guess, and go to what's called the science of reading, which I expect is how all three of us learn to read, which is phonetically. So that's a good thing, huh?
Yeah, it's since 2007, the school district has had a curriculum in place that sort of focuses on, the emphasis is on the spirit of discovery and learning, and so that you don't teach phonics and you don't beat them over the head and sort of phonics and things like that. You have pictures, you have context, you have the first initial. I mean, I'm sort of caricaturing.
No. It's clues. Yes,
and
clues
you
and
have these
context.
clues, and so people kind of. The reality is, most people learn to read just sort of in this weird osmotic way, and no matter what the methodology is, they're going to learn how to read.
Right. That's about, well, it's not most, it's about a third.
But within the margins, and they're big margins, the curriculum actually really matters. And so recent research is fairly clear that more people learn to read, a whole lot more people learn to read faster and sooner in their life if they're taught how to sound out the words than if they have to sort of get the context. Now, so they have made a shift, and it's quite remarkable how fast the school district has actually moved on this. I mean, I think it was in 2021 where they first convened a literacy, workshop, or a task force, excuse me, to sort of explore this. And given how slowly school boards tend to move on anything, it's truly remarkable that they have made this change. Now, it is easier said than done to make the shift, because most teachers were taught using the method you referred to, the Lucy Calkins school. And so we'll see what difference that makes. They're going to all have to be reschooled in terms of how they teach kids how to read.
Yeah.
Now,
Josh,
I have heard a lot of people say this sort of dichotomy that, I wrote about and you're talking about has been exaggerated, and that by necessity, anybody in a classroom is dealing with reality. And so they do a mix.
Yeah. Well, Josh, you outsourced this story to your colleague Grace Kitayama, who wasn't able to join us today. But we will await your news analysis, applauding Superintendent Hilda Maldonado for getting this done. But elsewhere in the school district, it was a big week for Dos Pueblo High School, which celebrated a number of victories in the various statewide competitions, not least of which was the awarding to Jacob Maldonado of a top
Molina.
a top defense attorney award in the mock trial. So your son has a great future representing felons. That's good. I understand criminal justice attorneys, once they work their way up to the mob, make a lot of money. So he certainly didn't get it from you, is all I got.
And Jerry, it's Jacob Molina. I
What
don't
did
need
I say? What did I say?
You said Maldonado.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't need any.
What a slip. Jacob Molina, Jacob Molina, there's 3 times we were
I don't
there.
need any more rumors about me. So it's Jacob Molina. Okay. I will say though that Hilda sent me a personal note to congratulate Jacob through
But she wasn't that nice.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you're asking me about what happened, but
Yeah, what happened?
Dos Pueblos high school, they have a mock trial team. It's actually an extracurricular thing. It's not a class. You know, the students join it and they have volunteers who run the program and they work with local attorneys to kind of manage it and offer them some insight. And so DP won second place in the state. And yes, my son, who you know well from
Well,
Ben
he's been
Patient Center.
newsmakers.
Oh yeah, he's been on the show too. He's also a journalist. He was awarded best defense attorney in the state, and he's the only one who got that award from Dos Pueblos, and it's a big deal. He
The
he
team
loves this
finished
stuff.
second overall, right?
The team finished second, which is a remarkable feat because they're going up against counties and all these different schools from all over the state and private schools they're competing against. So he loves this stuff and he's just this incredible memory. And if you saw him in the courtroom, every real attorney says you're like a real attorney, and they don't tell me dad, they tell him that. And so so they had a lot of success, and Jacob got great play, and Kelly Fozzie did the best story of anyone in the Independent. So I was very pleased to see the name Molina in the Independent. It was Jacob Molina, but I was very pleased to see it.
Yeah, well, you blew your chance on that one, Josh. So let's not revisit that old bitter history anymore. All right, Nick Welsh, Josh Molina, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time on Newsmakers.